Tonight on Friday Night Fright Night, we're going inside one of the most terrifying modern horror films.
Family tragedy, cults, and one of the most shocking third acts in horror history.
It's Ari Aster's Hereditary, and we're about to summon the darkness. Hang on, we're going to play the intro, so stay tuned. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Friday Night Fright Night. I'm GC from Face the Movies.
And I'm Lee from Cinema Whiplash. Tonight we're discussing this. What is discuss? It's a disgusting movie. See, I'm already doing it. Great, man. Here we go.
We talked
Tonight we're
about it, guys.
discussing one of the most disturbing horror films of the last decade, Hereditary.
That's right. From 2018, this film put A24 horror on the map, terrified audiences, and made Ari Aster one of the most talked about horror directors of the modern era.
Yeah, we'll explore its themes of grief, trauma, family curses, and of course, the unforgettable ending.
Yeah, and before we get a little too deep into the movie, if you haven't seen it yet, as always, we're going to keep things spoiler free at first for everyone, and once we've gotten a little bit more closer to the spoilers, we'll let you know and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll give you the warning before we go to the full spoiler breakdown.
Now, if you've seen this movie, you may not remember too much of it. I'm going to give you a quick little film synopsis, as always in these episodes, keep you updated. After the death of her secretive mother, Annie Graham and her family begin unraveling dark secrets that reveal a terrifying fate. As grief consumes them, they realize they may be pawns in a sinister plan stretching back generations. Now,
Yes.
yeah, that's that was pretty much it. That was the little short little synopsis for you guys. But I was thinking for this one, Lee,
Sure.
just trying to switch it up a little bit. I was thinking we do like a cool little icebreaker. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's start with some fun because this movie is it's a dark movie. It's a little bit of a downer, good, but so yeah, let's start it off a little bit light first.
Dude, all right, let's do it. Let's do it the fun one first. So, if you had to live inside one of the A24 horror movie universes, which one would you choose? A, Hereditary, B, The Witch, or C, Midsummer?
Man, those choices are all pretty depressing. So you got two movies about cults, and then the other one is I don't even remember The Witch, to be honest with you. I saw it once and I never saw it again. So and that takes place like back in like what, like the 18 no, before, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know, just to because it's a little bit lighter looking, and at least at first it looks like they're having a good time. I'm gonna go with Midsummer. What about you?
Dude, it's a hard one, man, because dude, I feel like I may go with Midsummer or Midsummer, whatever whichever one it is. Just because it's true. It's like the witch back then, they didn't have penicillin. Deals with witches, and I feel like they all three of them deal with cults in a way.
Yeah,
Because you have Midsummer, obviously. Spoiler alert if you guys haven't seen Midsummer. The Witch, it is kind of a cult thing, witches and all that stuff, and then obviously Hereditary. But Midsummer seems at least like you'll have a little fun before something crazy happens.
yeah, I think so, right? And then you could spend some time with Florence Pugh, and she's an attractive woman, so at least you
Yeah.
have that. I mean, so two of these are from the same director, but The Witch is from Robert Eggers. So yeah, his style is pretty similar to this director. So those are good picks as far as that. But yeah, all a little bit grim.
Yeah, unfortunately with that one. But now it's gonna get a little grimmer, before we get through that tunnel and we get closer to the fun stuff. So this is gonna be the serious icebreaker. Do you
Hmm.
think Hereditary is scarier because of the supernatural element or because the way it portrays grief and trauma in families?
As far as scary goes, I'd say the supernatural elements. I mean, obviously the trauma can be something that's just it really brings you down. It's scary to life that we can go through these type of things that can bring depression and sadness and all these things into your life. But as far as like scary and movie wise, supernatural elements, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, man. There's specific scenes as we get into this that we'll talk about that completely made me uncomfortable. Before this episode, obviously, like I always do, I try to watch the movie like pretty close to recording the episode just because I want it super fresh in my mind. I have seen this one before. I've seen it twice, so this was, I believe, the third time now.
Same.
But dude, I know for sure after this episode tonight, I'm gonna have trouble sleeping. Absolutely.
I'll definitely won't watch it again for a bit. It's also my third time. I saw it in the theaters, and then I saw it when I first bought it, and now I watched it before we did this. And yeah, I saw it about 3 days ago, so it's pretty fresh in my mind.
Dude, you know what's crazy? It's my third time, your third time, and then you saw it 3 days ago. So technically in
Uh
some
oh.
cult thing that would mean something. So I hope this episode's not cursed.
3
But
3 3.
yeah, man, like there's some cuz usually it's 666, but I've heard something about 333 also meaning something. Probably should have looked into it.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that. So that was kind of a little fun surprise.
Yeah. All
But
right. Well, you know what? Before we go deeper into it, let's talk about the cast, right?
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely,
we
man.
we got Toni Collette as Annie Graham, and I'm sure everyone knows her from The Sixth Sense. I thought she gave an incredible performance in that also. She's also in Knives Out, and Little Miss Sunshine is a movie that I remember her from a lot too. Alex Wolff as Peter Graham. This guy was in Old and he was in Pig, but I remember him the most now because I think I told you I recently rewatched the three Jumanji movies, and in these newer ones, 2 and 3, he comes out in them. He's like one of the main characters, so you guys might remember him from there too. You got William Shapiro as Charlie Graham, and I'm sorry, Millie Shapiro. My apologies. She plays Charlie, and she's great in this movie. I don't personally know her from anything else. We do
Yeah.
have here that she was in the Broadway Matilda, the musical. Then you got Gabriel Byrne, which he plays Steve Graham, the father. This guy's been in a million movies. He's a great actor. He's been in The Usual Suspects, Miller's Crossing. I remember him from End of Days, where he plays Satan. So, and then you have Ann Dodd as Joan, from The Handmaid's Tale and Compliance. And I think that's the grandmother, correct?
I believe so. Yeah, Ann Dow. I
Yeah.
believe that's the Joan. I believe she's a grandmother. Dude,
Yeah.
and I did want to say something about Gabriel Byrne. Um, I think he was in Stigmata, if I'm not mistaken, right? Wasn't he the priest in Stigmata?
Oh man, maybe, yeah, probably. He did go through that little part where in the late '90s where I think you're right, yeah, and he coming out in End of Days and Stigmata are very similar movies in a way. Um, but yeah, he's been in a ton of stuff. He's a good actor. He always plays a good villain, but we'll talk about it here that in this one he's 180 to that. Like a good father and stuff, and he plays a good guy.
Yeah, it's very surprising to see him in that role. Um, yeah, because I'm used to, like you said, he plays such a good villain. He has the look to it that to see
Hmm.
him in more like a father type role, it's kind of different, and it's interesting too. I haven't seen him in so long. So seeing him in 2018 in this release, I was like, oh man, it's been a while. I feel like I haven't seen this guy, so it's kind of awesome to see him that he's still acting and I mean just crushing it as usual.
Yeah, yeah, he's really good in it.
Now, dude, I want to ask. I want to start off with the first question right out of the gate, dude. How did you find out about this movie? Was it a trailer? Did somebody recommend it to you? Like, how did you come across this one?
For me, I saw the hype on it when it first came out. There was a lot of I saw a trailer for it in the theaters, and then when it first came out, I didn't go to the movies to see it. But I think maybe a week or two later, with all the hype, he was like, "You have to see it." And me being a horror fan, I was like, "I just got to make my way out there." So I finally went to the theater and saw it for myself. I went alone. I remember going alone and seeing it, and yeah, it was it was something else. How did you first watch it?
Dude, I came across the same thing. I think it was like on a trailer, and I was like, dude, this looks like fantastic. Looks very stylish and just very beautiful presented in the trailer, creepy as hell. So I went out to theaters, watched it, and man, it was definitely an experience. That's for sure. I walked out of there and I was like, what the hell is this? Like in a good way.
Yeah, 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 same.
Now,
Yeah, I think it's you want me to ask you? I wanted to ask you the next one because I think how important is Toni Collette performance in making this movie work? Because she seems to be like the center and the heart and the soul of it.
dude, I mean, I think her role is absolutely crucial. There's a ton of phenomenal actresses out there, but there's something about Toni Collette's intensity, right? When you watch this movie, I mean, dude, her performance to me felt like Oscar worthy. I mean, the way that she showed grief, and it was just like no other, man. It felt so realistic, so haunting. I
Yeah.
definitely think that her performance was key for this movie succeeding because it's an amazing story, I mean, beautifully shot, but that performance is what really made it stand out.
Yeah, no, she is the heart and soul of it. Yeah, when getting into the movie a little bit, we see this family living. I believe they're in Utah, and they live kind of in the woods. And what Toni Collette does for a living, it seems that she creates this art where she creates miniatures of, and she
Yeah.
seems to base it off her life. So you see miniatures of stuff, but it has a really great opening shot of of this kid. He's in bed, but it's like a miniature, and it zooms in, and then it becomes reality, which turns out to be Alex Wolf Peter, her son. um, so yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in there, but when you get to see and to talk about grief in this movie, is like her performance is just wow. Like she was nominated for an Oscar for this. I don't think she won though, but man, I would have to look back to see who won that year because she just like even when she starts crying after she finds out her daughter dies, and you see her on the floor with her husband, she just says it hurts too much that she just wants to die. Like that just kills you, man. Like I don't know if I've ever seen a performance like that when portraying like such a realistic way of feeling like this. A mother losing her child is just, unbearable.
Yeah, I cannot think from the top of my head when I've ever seen a performance of like somebody expressing grief to that extent. I mean, it's it was so good that it almost makes you feel like it convinces you that you're experiencing it at that very same moment. You almost feel like you're a part of her family and all that stuff because I mean, it's like that saying, man, in Interstellar, where where Matthew McConaughey when he's visiting his daughter in the hospital, and she's all old and everything, and she's like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
you should leave. Like, a parent shouldn't watch, their kid passing and stuff." And that's what was expressed in this film. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal performance, dude. If she didn't win any award for it, I'm blown away by that because that was just, I mean, dude, even at the scene in the dinner table where her and Peter are kind of just going a little bit back and forth,
Oh
and
yeah.
she just loses it, and you just see her eyes almost popping out of her head and the veins on her forehead and everything. It was just, man, talk about like not just vocal acting, but like that, the way she's able to control those expressions, even the micro expressions, was just, man, out of this world.
Yeah, and the going back and forth with Peter, her son, in this, I thought Alex Wolff was actually really good in this movie too. Obviously, I don't think anybody does better than Toni Collette in this movie. It's just hard to surpass that level of acting, but I think it has to do with the character and the way it was written too, obviously. But he's really good. His reactions, he has to like have like watery eyes, crazy, like crying in this movie, just doing some crazy stuff. We'll get into it, but he was really good too. I'm sure that they were good scene partners there because it really shows.
Dude, I was impressed by Alex Wolf. I mean, dude, the way he was able to turn into Peter and show those expressions. I mean, he honestly, it was Tony. She was number one in the movie, and I felt like Peter was second. Because he was just same thing, man. The amount of range that he had, because Gabriel Byrne's obviously Steve, the husband, he did great, but he was very stoic throughout the film. He has his moments where he expresses anger and frustration, um, but it's just, I mean, between Tony and Alex, they were just absolutely powerhouses, man. Like even when Alex didn't say anything and when he would just be sitting in class, or like the scene where he's like smoking pot with his friends and he starts having that panic attack and he's like, "Oh, my throat's closing up." Dude,
Oh
it gave me flashbacks, being a previous
yeah.
stoner back in the day, and you get that
Getting a
panic
bad one.
attack. Yeah, dude, you get a bad one, and like I felt so bad for him, and I was like, dude, that sucks, man. I've been there, and like I don't know if he suffers from anxiety or any of that, but he did his homework because he portrayed it perfectly.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, dude, I have a controversial question I want to ask you. I don't think it's a part of the questions that we planned out for this. And it just recently came up, and I kind of wanted to get your take on it. Right?
Sure.
We've discussed elevated horror. It's a big thing now that people are talking about. A24 has that reputation as a studio for giving you that art house type so-called fancy elevator. I mean, not elevator, elevated horror. It's almost like they're like the Criterion collection of horror, so to speak. Some people think it's pretty much bullshit. They're like, oh, it's bullshit. It's not real horror. Others do believe that. What are your thoughts on that, man? Like, how do you feel about A24's I guess the new elevated horror? Like, how do you feel about that compared to the traditional sort of horror?
Well, I like some of it. I don't like it all, but just like anything, just like a slasher or a zombie movie, there's gonna be some that I like and some that I don't. But I think it has a place in cinema. I think it's great to have these movies that don't only bring horror, but they really, make you think, and they put in a lot of thought into everything they do. It's not like it hasn't happened before. I would even say back in the day we could call The Sixth Sense, could talk about Tony Collette, kind of an elevated horror movie in a way, right? Because it's got like everything. You look at the colors, what people are wearing, the way it's shot. I think M. Night Shyamalan did a really good job, and I think he kind of did a lot of elevated horror in a way, right? And when he started off, we won't go into where he ended up, um, but yeah, I like it, dude. I don't like even talking about these movies. This one's the one that really stands out the most. I personally, I don't know if we'll ever review it. Maybe one day we will, but I didn't even really like Midsummer too much, to be honest. And I'm not a big fan of The Witch, but this movie really stands out. There's other ones that just don't come to mind right now that I enjoy, but I think there's a place for everything, and as long as it's done good and right, then yeah, more power to them. I say keep bringing them. We're still getting the slasher, the fun horror movies too. But having one of these, once a year, twice a year, I think it works out good.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of it's true because a lot of people in this day and age they're saying, oh, they're doing this whole art house type stuff or calling it this and that, trying to make it fancy, and it's not real horror. Um, but I mean, when we look back, right, in the history of cinema in the last like 20 years or so, maybe or plus, I mean, there was a lot of films like that. You hit the nail on the head with M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, The Sixth Sense, if it was made today, I feel like it would be with A24. I mean, the way it's shot, the cinematography, the builds up, how it's it's a horror movie that's so quiet. You know what I mean? Like with this one in particular, it's like a lot goes through these scenes where a lot of them are very quiet and very atmospheric and tense, and not too much is said, but then that silence itself kind of says everything that's going on with these films. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm on the same boat. Controversially enough, I have not seen The Witch. I do have it here in this little like 5-pack collection that I got at Walmart. So I do have it. Haven't seen it yet. I've seen X, I've seen Hereditary, The Green Room, It Comes at Night. I've enjoyed all of them. I Midsummer I've seen, I really enjoyed. The Green Knight. There were I mean, so far I haven't seen anything of theirs where I've been like, I didn't really care for it. Um, I do feel that as a studio, they do belong in this industry because they are kind of changing the game when it comes to horror. Because we have obviously Italian horror, giallos. We have like slasher horror. We have campy horror, and then with this, it's more of they play with the shots and the cinematography and the music with in a certain way that all these other movies didn't. Like they stuck to the traditional pan shots and like pop up scares and stuff like that. But with this, it's more of I mean, like you were talking about that first scene when Hereditary starts and it goes from being a miniature to zooming in to Peter's actual room, And the entire movie, every single scene like that, if you notice the amount of space between their heads and the ceiling, it's like they're in miniatures throughout the whole most of the movie. And dude, I mean, I like to be able to pull something like that off. It's like, how the hell do they come up with that shit? Because I've never seen stuff like that in other movies, um,
Yeah.
especially at least other horror movies. So it's incredible. But I wanted to talk about that, man, because I know that as of late, it's been in the last like 2 weeks, I've seen a lot of posts on it, and it seems like it's this hot take on A24 and the stuff that they're doing. And I was just curious about that, kind of, starting that conversation, especially whoever's listening. Let us know your thoughts, and in the comment section. If How do you feel about A24 and the so-called elevated horror?
Yeah, I mean, A24 started off as just making mostly horror movies, these types elevated horror movies, and like any other studio, New Line Cinema with Freddy and Lionsgate with Saw, they keep doing it, but they move on to doing all types of movies, which
Yeah,
A24 is doing now. They're bringing out, but even when they make their comedies, I recently saw a movie that's called Friendship, which I recommended. It actually has some pretty funny moments. It's with Paul Rudd and I forget the other actor's name, but it's an A24 comedy, but it still has that indie vibe to it. The way it's shot, it's not your typical comedy. So they even though they're going out and making these movies like that, they're still sticking to the independent, not spending too much money, because this is how you keep it going. Like, for example, this movie I think only cost like $10 million to make, and it made 90 million worldwide. It's a huge hit. Huge hit.
yeah.
All you got to do is make about 25, 30 to be in the black, and they made 90. So they're doing it right over there. So yeah, I hope they keep it going. They keep making horror movies and and now they're doing comedies, and they won an Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once, or however that movie was called. And that's more like a science fiction drama, but it still has that A24 vibe for sure. So yeah, they're a cool studio, and I think a lot of people are jumping on that wagon and trying to do things like that, like A24 does.
Dude, they definitely have a signature to them, and I mean, I love the fact that it goes to show that with talent, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I mean, there's movies out there where they have the budget, the size, like the size of buying a used car, and they're able to pull these movies off, and I mean, even get awards for them. And sometimes just throwing money at it. I mean, we have as an example, Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, right? Wes Craven, dude, the budget that he had was so minimal, almost non-existent, to be able to make that movie, and everything they had to do to create. They had to create new ways to do these type of scenes, and dude, it's incredible what they were able to accomplish. They were able to create a horror icon with such a minimal budget. I mean, especially what they used in this day and age. It's like, dude, it's laughable. Now people would look at it and be like, dude, how the hell did you manage to pull that off? And I
Yeah.
love the fact that A24 is not trying to be all, fancy and bougie, and they're just like, we don't have to throw that much. Let's get a good story out. One thing I've noticed too with them, it's that they incorporate a lot of shapes in their films. Like they have a lot of subliminal messages. And if you notice most movies when they start or throughout certain parts of the movies, you'll notice the rooms that the characters are in, they have a certain shape to them. And usually it's like that triangle shape, like for the A, and they
Mm.
always find a way to sneak that in there. And if you're paying close attention, you'll catch it. um, but that's one thing that, because my girlfriend always brings that up whenever we're watching a movie, and I won't tell her it's A24, and she always finds it. She's like, "Oh, this is an A24 movie, right?" I'm like, "How'd you know?" And she's like, "Oh, because of the shapes. I started noticing them." And then that's how I actually started seeing them, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's right. They have little subliminal messages in all their movies." But yeah, I just wanted to go through there. But we'll get back to this masterpiece of a movie. Now, dude, as far as for scariest film, right? Do you think the reputation of this film, after watching it, 3 times now, do you feel like this movie really is a horror movie, a scary movie? And even so, do you feel like it's one of the scariest films of the decade? The decade?
Um, well, this is the thing for me, that this movie, especially in the first two acts, feels like very much like a hardcore drama. This is a drama that's about grief, it's about loss. These characters have all been, they all lose something, they all go through something. It starts with, this movie starts with the grandmother passing away, and then we, we get, the Charlie dying too, and then we just see this family in grief the whole time. And the things that you turn to when someone passes away that's close to you, whether it's going to a group so you can hear other people going through the same things as you, a mother losing a child, spending time with another mother losing a child could be very helpful to her because they're both going through this thing where they can help each other get through it. And yeah, I just feel like this movie just, it feels like a drama. And then it's, once she meets this other lady, and it turns into more of a horror movie. It's about cults and stuff like that. But to me, I feel like it just feels more like I'm watching a drama. I can see this movie, and I'm trying to remember if other than Tony Collette being nominated, if it got a nomination for best film in the Oscars too, because I feel like it's a movie that definitely it goes down that route and should have gotten the attention. It's sometimes with horror, they might ignore, the Academy ignores horror a little bit, which I think it's unfair. I think it's starting to pick up a little bit. We'll see if this year they pick up some stuff with Sinners or maybe even Weapons. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with drama mostly. But the third act, there's some really creepy elements. The movie gets pretty creepy, pretty scary. And throughout, though, there's a scene in after the grandmother dies in the beginning where Tony Collette's character Annie goes home and she turns off the lights and she sees her mom in a corner. And I always find it pretty scary in movies when there's characters in corners and they light them the way they light them, and a lot of times they're smiling or being creepy. And that stuff could be creepier to me than just like a jump scare or something like that, for sure. Especially if you do it and you purposely don't put a jump scare because you're not expecting it. Like for me, jump scares kind of take it away. But if you're just leaving it there and the music kind of stays the same, I think it makes it a lot more creepier. And we do get a lot of not a lot, but we get a few of those moments in this movie. So it's definitely a balance between horror and drama. How
Dude,
do you
I
how do you feel?
that scene with the mom, and see, for me, I agree. Like, this is definitely a massive dramatic movie. Um, I do think it's definitely horror. I think, compared to the trailer and watching the film, it lived up to the reputation. As far as for scariest film of the decade, I wouldn't say it's the scariest film of the decade, but it's one of the ones that definitely made me uncomfortable. It's one of the uncomfortable films of the decade because, I mean, dude, that scene alone with the mom, and that's one I wanted to bring up. Out of all the scenes in that film, besides obviously the sister, the little sister, when she goes into Peter, well Peter's trying to go to bed, and then he's laying there and he's looking at that dark corner. And all you hear is,
Yeah.
and that's creepy. But I mean, that mom, the way she stood there in that dark corner and her expression and the way they lit her so perfectly, dude. And then she turns on, Tony Collette turns on the light, and it was so perfect, the transition. Dude, that scared the shit out of me. And in the sense of, like, I don't know. To me, I could watch movies of monsters and Nightmare on Elm Street, all these other things, and I'm fine. But when it comes to shit like that, when it comes to dealing with corners, dealing with the dark, it's a whole different ball game. Just because we all have that, when there's this saying where if you stare at the darkness long enough, it stares right back. And just imagine you're getting ready to go to bed. It's the room's dark as shit, but the moon lighting is slightly coming through a window, and you just see some figure in some corner staring at you. Dude, that's creepy as hell. Um, I so to me that scene definitely, I was like, okay, like shit, like I'm in for a ride after this.
Yeah, because to me, the as a person that's been watching horror movies since he was 8 years old, at this point, I enjoy horror movies. I love them, but I'm very rarely scared. Now, scenes like that, like what happens with the mother, they don't creep me out. Oh, I'm scared, but they give you like little goosebumps. They give you that scared feeling inside. And I think, thinking back like at Gerald's Game, right? That movie, this girl's stuck in a bed and she's stuck, and there's a guy in the corner. She keeps seeing him, and she doesn't even know if he's real or not. That stuff is scarier to me because that can happen in real life. Like the grandmother, that scene is scary, but it's more of a ghost thing. But like someone could break into your house and just stay in the corner watching you like a creep. That's scarier to me because it's not a supernatural element. It's something that could really
Yeah.
happen. And things that can really happen in real life are, to me, the, obviously the scarier things. So yeah, but no, that scene really works. There's a scene at the end where I don't want to jump too deep into it, but where Annie is like on a wall behind Steve, no, not Steve, behind Peter, the son, and she stays there long enough that it does not scary anymore. But when you first see her, it's kind of one of those creepy moments, like the mom too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, see, that's the thing, dude. It's like for me, like same thing. I've been watching horror movies since I was, dude, probably 8 or 9 years old. So it's very rare to make me uncomfortable. But the stuff when it comes to kind of being based on true story type, like Conjuring stuff, and I know it's Conjuring, for example, is controversial, but dude, we never know what's really going on out there in the world, man. I mean, especially with that type of stuff, you never know. So the thought of like even that happening, especially I don't know if you've been in certain houses or anything where you've kind of felt uncomfortable, kind of like Amityville style, where you go into a house or an apartment or something, and it's like, damn, something feels weird here. Because I know I've had that happen, and man, like I've had those feelings of going somewhere and I'm like, man, I definitely would not spend a night here. Like there's something weird about this place. It makes me uncomfortable. So it's just I thought about that scene. It's like shit, man.
Yeah.
I Yeah, dude, it's crazy, man. But dude, let's talk about talking about scenes. Which of these scenes hit you harder, right? Because you have the accident in the beginning, you have the seance, and then obviously you have the finale. Which one of the three hit you hardest?
For me, it's the accident. It's just, here's the thing. I want to go back right quick to the noise that Charlie makes.
Yeah.
Like when she did that, when I remember when first seeing it, because you already know when you watch a lot of movies that things are gonna come back. So once she did die, I was like, okay, we're gonna hear that noise again because I know this movie's gonna take it there, and it did. I was a little disappointed about that because it kind of plays on to, I'm gonna. The only reason that she makes that noise is because later on you're gonna hear her after she's dead. So it's played for scares, but um, the accident for me, it really, it's just so crazy, man. The whole scene about the mom telling her you got to take your sister with you, right? This is something that happens to siblings all the time. The older sibling sometimes has to take the younger sibling to a friend's house or a party because the moms or the dad's like, oh, you just take them with you. So that happens. That's very realistic. And then we know that she has a peanut allergy. And I kind of got a little feeling that as soon as he's like, oh, look, Charlie, there's cake over there. Just go, because he wants to go smoke with his friends, something might happen here. And she starts to get the allergy. She can't breathe, and he takes her, and he's hauling ass trying to get her to the hospital. These people kind of all live in the middle of nowhere type of thing, where there's different cabins or houses around. And so he's going really fast in the middle of nowhere, but she can't breathe, and she brings her head out to try to get some air. And that he looks back to see like that she's doing this, and the car kind of moves a little bit, and she hits the light pole, and her whole head goes off. What's really scary about this whole thing and really got me, and I think that that's the one that hit me the hardest, is his reaction to it. His reaction of just being like, he can't even look back there because he knows what happened. And this is also another part where I think Alex Wolff as Peter does a really good job with the acting. It's just, you almost get mad at him, right? Because he just drives home, and then he just turns off the car and goes to bed because he can't even process what just happened. To not even enough, because he knows she's dead. There's nothing he can do. So he doesn't even go to tell his parents, because in his mind too, not only is he in shock, but he must be thinking, I'm just gonna go wake up my parents, and they're about to go through the most traumatic thing of their lives too. So it's just so well done, man. I think there's nothing better in this movie. That, I mean, it's traumatizing, but I think the accident is like the best part. Like from there on out, the movie is still good, but it just doesn't top it, man. That scene is, it's just crazy. And like he just goes to sleep, and then when he wakes up, no, he doesn't really sleep. He stays with his eyes open. He hears his mom's reaction, and that's when we get that thing that we spoke about earlier with Tony Collette and her reaction to her daughter dying, and it's just so real, man. That whole scene, like those 10 minutes from the time of the accident to she wakes up and the funeral, is pretty heavy, man. So yeah, to me that's the one that hit me the hardest. What about you?
No, I think for me that one was the one that hit me the hardest as well because I think the finale is obviously scary as shit. Like it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Seance is creepy, but the accident is just the way it was shot. Because I mean, they did, like you said, they did lead up to it, with the whole peanut allergy. But the thing was that, even before the cake, you just see them like chopping up walnuts, and the camera pans directly into the walnuts. So I know as soon as I saw that, I was even before like the cake or anything, I was like, okay, something's gonna happen because why would they pan into the walnuts like that? You know, if it doesn't even matter. But that part, and then and that the thing is too is like when he's driving back, one thing you did miss was the dead deer in the
Oh,
middle of the
that's what
road.
causes the
Yeah,
swerve. Okay.
yeah, that's why he swerved out, which to me it was like he was the only one in this empty road. Why would you swerve right and not swerve left? Because the deer definitely looked like it was more on the right lane, and there was a pole there. So it's like, why wouldn't you just go the opposite way? But obviously he was high as
Oh,
hell. He was panicking because his sister's like
yeah.
literally suffocating. But dude, that's see for me, um, I took that scene a little differently with Peter because it was one of those parallel type reality situations where it's like Schrodinger's cat, right? You know, Schrodinger's. I don't know if you know about. Do you know about Schrodinger's cat? Like the whole theory behind it. So
No.
this guy's a scientist, and he does this theory, right? Where he puts this cat in a box, and he puts like a little vial of poison in there. And supposedly after a certain time, this, vial will spill or whatnot, and the cat would die in the box. Now the theory is that he doesn't know if it went off or not. So, and this is all hypothetical too. It wasn't like actually done to any animals or anything. But the theory is that if you don't open the box, you cannot verify if it actually happened in the cat. So as long as the box is closed, the cat is still alive. So for
Right.
me, I took it as Peter did not want to look back because he had an inkling what happened, but he knew that the second he actually looked and he saw her decapitated, it was real. So he was kind of in this denial where he just went home and went straight to bed, and he's like, if I don't look back, she's still there. She's still there. And dude, yeah, when he hears his mom screaming and stuff, that's where he realized he's like, she's dead. And obviously he knew, but it was just one of those in denial type situations. He was high, he was young, he was traumatized, so it took into account. But dude, that scene, I mean, and it leads up to it because when he's driving to the party, you see that cult sign on that pole ahead of time. So you kind
Yeah.
of get an inkling, you're like, there's that sign again, which is on the grandma's necklace, and you're seeing it everywhere throughout the film. But dude, I mean, it's insane. Like to like shit, the way that kid went out like that. I mean, it was brutal. And then you see the head like a few minutes afterwards, like covered in ants and stuff, and it's like, holy hell.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to that, and definitely because we might not get to it, I just wanted to mention that even though I feel like the way that the mom Annie later on deals with stuff, like we know that she does all this art, and like I was saying, she goes with things that happen in her life. But there's a good scene where Steve, her husband, comes in and she's recreating the accident, and I understand like Steve's reaction to this because he's like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, why
Yeah.
would you want to? How can you do that?" Like, she's like, yeah, he's like, and also it's gonna mess up Peter. Like, how do you think Peter's gonna feel seeing that? And she's like, I'm not doing it for him. This is just something that happened. But man, it's so crazy the way she and the detail, the way she recreates it is pretty crazy. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there in case we forget to mention that she does the artwork of that because that was pretty crazy.
Dude, no, I know, I definitely understand that's like her outlet with all the trauma she had. Obviously, throughout the film, we find out, that she, even in the very beginning, that scene where we were talking about where the mom's ghost is in that corner, right before that moment, like a few minutes before, obviously Tony Collette's opening this box that was belonging to her mom, and she finds that book about spirituality and all that stuff, and then she sees a note
Hmm.
that her mom left her. And dude, you know right off the bat, obviously that she didn't have a good relationship with her mom. You see her reaction and everything. Even the husband's asking her after the funeral, like, "How are you feeling?" And she's like, "Oh, I feel like should I be feeling sadder and stuff?" But to be fair, I feel like I don't know if it was just because of generational trauma from her and her mom not being close and stuff. But dude, I felt like she was a shitty mom. Like Tony Collette's character Annie, she was just the shittiest mom because even before the accident and all that stuff, you could just tell that the way her mom treated her, she was treating Peter. And it was just so messed up. Even when he's like, "Oh, could I borrow one of the cars?" And she's just kind of being a smartass and she's being an asshole about it. And it was just one of those where I was like, man, I never liked her throughout the movie at all. I felt a little bad when she was grieving, but I just never liked her. And that's how good of a job Tony Collette did that she made me not like her. I always felt like something was off with her. I don't know. She just, I don't know if it was her face. It was something, man, but I did not like her, man. I was rooting for Peter the whole time, even after the accident. I was like, this poor kid, his mom's being an asshole. Like he just went through this whole traumatizing experience. Like he didn't have an EpiPen because his mom failed to be a parent and to make sure that like anybody knows that a kid that has an allergy, like allergic reactions and stuff, they always have an EpiPen with them at all
Yeah, because
times.
even in the beginning in the funeral, where that's where we find out that Charlie has a peanut allergy is because she's looking at her grandma and she takes out a Hershey's bar and starts to eat it, and Steve is like, her dad's like, it doesn't have peanuts on it, right? And then she's like, no, 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 it doesn't. And then we have her come in, Annie, and she's like, oh, it doesn't. Okay, good, because we don't have an EpiPen, so she didn't even have it there. Like it
Yeah.
means like she doesn't really carry one with her all the time, or gives one to whoever's gonna be with her. So yeah, she's not. I think she's, like you said, she's had so much trauma from her own childhood. Her mom being a not being good. Sometimes that leaps into the child, and you end up doing the same thing to your kids without noticing. And
Yeah.
she seems to be, because she just isn't over her own shit. So she doesn't even want to have time to do a good job raising her own kids. So yeah, she's not the greatest. I think she redeems herself a little bit in the third act, in trying to do some things right. But yeah, I can see how she can be unlikable.
Yeah, dude. And what stood out too about that was that the fact, Steve, the husband, the whole time throughout the whole movie, like he's cooking dinner, he's like that dude was being such a good husband, man. Like making sure the kids were okay, checking on Peter, like even after the whole argument and stuff at the dinner table. It's just one of those. He was really holding it together, and I get it too. Like her mom passed away and stuff, but she wasn't even that close to be acting like the way she was. Like if she was like grieving or anything. And I don't know, man. Like it was definitely one of those. Like I definitely give an award to the dad for like putting up with all that stuff, being on top of everything,
Yeah,
but I
because he's
just
like, he's like, oh, he goes to get her for dinner. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna cook dinner now. He's like, what do you mean? I already cooked dinner. Dinner's ready. Come on.
yeah, he's like, "I came to get you," like,
Yeah, it's like I already
but
cooked.
that dude, man, he was such a good guy in the film. I definitely felt bad for him. I understood. I was in a relationship once, like similar to that, where the person was just kind of, bitter and not present, and me like trying to do all this stuff. So I could understand his position. I was like, that's poor guy. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, man, because that's one thing that to me just I think out of the entire film, it didn't make sense that she didn't have an EpiPen, especially at her age. It's like you
Yeah.
would think that at one point she had an allergic reaction and that's how they probably found out or something, and they kind of would learn the lesson, but it's like it gets brought up, I think, up before she dies, what I think it was twice, about the EpiPen, and you're like, dude,
Yeah.
seriously, like at all, there's none in the car, there's
It's
like
like they
nobody.
obviously have them at home only, but it's like, why
Yeah.
don't you take them with you everywhere, wherever you go with her? Obviously, put one in your purse or whatever, and then that's it. But yeah, yeah, exactly. Keep it in one in each car, just to make sure you have it. Like Peter would have had one there, but I guess it works out. It works out in the way of the movie's trying to tell this story, so we have to have it happen, and in turn makes her look like a bad mom.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things, because I wanted to ask you about like some stuff that, like, is there anything you would change in this story? Because I think for me that would be something I would change. Definitely, I feel like it wouldn't be as obvious about that. I feel like maybe they would have the EpiPen, but somehow, you know, it would get lost or misplaced or something, or they wouldn't get to it on time. But I think that's something I would definitely change in the story. Would just be something like that.
Or
Um,
something as easy as Peter having it in his pocket, and since he smokes and stuff, he pulls out his lighter, and the EpiPen just comes off and falls somewhere, and he doesn't know where it is, and he doesn't know it fell. So when he's in the car driving, he's looking for it, and it's not there, and then he's like, "Oh shit," something as simple
Dude,
as that could have solved that just to not make her look so bad.
dude, see, that would have been incredible, even at the party, right? Like when
Yeah.
exactly, he's in that room hanging out with everybody. He pulls out the lighter, EpiPen falls out of his pocket, lands on the rug, rolls under the bed or something, and then that's it. But that's one thing that just did not feel believable in the film for me. But what about you? Is there anything at all that stuck out that you were kind of like, I wish they kind of would have changed it, or are you pretty good besides the EpiPen situation?
Yeah, I didn't think about it too much, but once we started talking about it, that's where I came up with, oh, maybe he could have dropped it or whatever. But no, just there's little things in the movie that are gonna come back, and I guess that's okay because most movies do that in horror.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is a me thing, that little thing just bothered me, just because I knew as soon as she was making that noise with her mouth, I'm like, we're gonna hear that again, and it's supposed to bring into that creepy, scary stuff, and I'm not a big fan of supernatural horror, in the first place, but I always know that in supernatural horror movies they always do stuff like that. Even this movie being elevated and being better made than a lot of them, still falls into that little tradition. But nah, nitpick, no big deal.
See, dude, it's interesting because for me, I didn't catch that about when she made the noise. Even now, rewatching a third time, like I didn't catch it just because, um, she that was kind of her she was autistic in the film. She was in that in the special. I don't know if that's what it's called or they changed it or something, but growing up it was called special needs class. And for autistic kids and a lot of them they have those ticks. So to me that's all I ever took it as. Like she just had that tick and she would do it sometimes, especially she would do it mostly when she felt uncomfortable. That was like her way of expressing herself. So I never caught that as it coming back at the end or anything like that. But it was yeah, it was definitely interesting to hear that, like because I haven't really talked to anybody too deep about the movie, so it's kind of cool to hear like your take on that one.
Yeah, no, same here. That's why I'm glad we're talking about. We chose to talk about this movie. We definitely want to keep it fun, and we have some really fun picks coming up for you guys in October. But we wanted to talk about this one before October got here, and kind of not get it out the way, but like really get into something a little bit darker before we go into like just the fun October horror movies. So no, I'm glad we're talking about it because yeah, there's a couple things you've mentioned yourself that I didn't notice. I definitely had no idea about the A24 doing the shapes thing, to be honest. So next time I watch one, I'll keep a lookout because I didn't catch the A thing. So I'll definitely look into that. And so
Yeah,
that's cool.
you'll see it, dude. I promise you. Like if especially a lot of times in the beginning of their films, you'll see it. And just wherever somebody's in a room or something, just take a look at the ceiling. I mean, you'll see it. The signature is in this movie when after the accident, and no, was it? I think no, it wasn't after the accident. I think it was no, yeah, I think it was right after the accident, and the father goes into the room and he's just sitting on her bed, and the way the camera is like angled, you see the ceiling and it's doing that triangle, but it's so prominent and it sticks out so much that you just see that right there, and you see it in Midsummer and all these other films. It's literally the same mark. I saw it in the very beginning of that recent movie about killing a unicorn, the death
Oh
of a
yeah,
unicorn. You see
yeah.
it right in the very beginning and stuff. I mean, yeah, they just have their little stamps in there, like hidden throughout the film. But like just to bounce off what Lee was saying, it's true. I mean, this is a movie that I've been wanting to talk about for quite some time with someone. There's a lot of good conversation out of it, a lot of things that we could learn from this film and catch. And it's one of those that even though it ends a certain way where it's pretty obvious, unlike a lot of other A24 movies where they're not as obvious sometimes, and it kind of like The Lighthouse, it just leaves it to your imagination how it ended. But it's one of those where you just like it just ends it that way, but then there's certain things throughout the film that to each person it meant something different. And like what we were talking about, the whole allergy thing, the scene with the car accident itself, and the whole scene, with the mom, and her coming from her generational trauma and all that stuff. So it's just such an interesting film. Like it's such a conversation piece.
Hmm.
Now, we did talk about, because I wanted to ask you about between if this was more of a grief and trauma movie than supernatural, but you did answer that earlier saying it definitely
Yeah.
was. It's definitely more of a trauma and grief type film, which I 100% agree with you. Um, but as far as for this film, do you feel like the film, like it, how do you feel like this film changed the expectations for A24 once it came out? Do you think people were thinking to themselves, this is the type of shit they got to keep doing continuously, or do you think that this movie set like a high standard for A24?
Well, I don't. I wonder. I wonder if A24 had a game plan, or if this is just a script that fell in their lap, and they were like, "Oh, let's make this movie. We can make it for 10 million, and we got this great new director, and let's just go for it." And I don't know that much about A24 history, to be honest. I would have to have made a list before, and I didn't, to see what movies came out before it. I know a lot that have come out after it. Give or take. And I'm 50-50 on them as a whole as a studio, like all studios. Like, I feel like every studio makes good and bad, and not everything hits for me for with A24. So yeah, I think they probably did see this, and having the success that it did, and said, let's do more of this stuff for sure. Um, but but yeah, at least for me, I don't, when a A24 movie comes out, I my expectations for it are not to always have something like this. I mean, we talked about right now, Death of a Unicorn is another one with Paul Rudd in it that I personally thought was a letdown. I didn't I thought the concept was funny, and I thought it was gonna be a good one, and it was very just basic, and I don't think I'd ever watch it again. There's a movie called Men. I don't know if you ever saw it, from A24, that it's the first two acts are awesome. I really liked it, and then the third act just goes way off, man. But it's super gory at the end. Like, it gets crazy. So I recommend to watch it, because I believe it's from the writer of the 28 Days Later movies, and he directed recently Civil War. I'm forgetting his name now. But yeah, check that one out. But yeah, I don't really have expectations as far as personally, but I think the studio definitely has some, expectations on trying to stay somewhere within the lines of this. But since they've moved on to comedy and science fiction and stuff like that too, I think that they've evolved. So since then,
Yeah, like I know when I first saw this movie, because I it was one of the first times hearing of A24, and it just felt like a new version of like New Line Cinema. Like, remember us growing up with New Line Cinema, and the second you saw that logo come on the screen, you knew like it was gonna be something good. You were excited about it. And seeing this movie and then saying, was like, oh, A24, never really heard of them. I didn't have expectations, but it definitely got my attention. And I was like, huh, I wonder what else they have. And dude, every single time I see A24 coming out with a new movie, and especially seeing, because they definitely have that style. Um, I don't know. I don't think they adopted that style based on Hereditary, but I do think that that was kind of like an end game for them. Like, that was their goal, is to have these type of stylistic new type of horror movies for more of the um and I mean this in not an insulting way. So if you're listening, it's not an insulting way, warning right off the bat. But I felt like it was a little bit more of an intellectual type horror, because it's not like the traditional. You watch Jason, you watch Michael Myers, and you're sitting there having to analyze. Oh, what does this mean, and where's this going to
tread
lead?
lightly, tread lightly.
But no, but that's what it is, right? Because you have campy movies, right, where you know what's going to
Yeah,
happen. Teenagers are having sex. Next thing the second they start having sex, somebody's going to get killed. You have those type of horror movies, and then you have body horror. Obviously, you have the giallos and all these sort of films. Which giallos are like that mystery and atmospheric type films. But with this, it just feels very, everything means something. It's like, if you're gonna watch one of these movies, it's a different type of horror, and it's one of those. There's gonna be certain horror elements, but it's not gonna be full on horror, like what someone would typically expect. It's one of those, every single little thing. If you miss one thing and you get to the end, you're like, what the hell does that mean? You have to watch this movie again, or watch it a third or fourth time, and you start really picking things up, and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I missed that. I feel like they're making movies where you buy it and you want to watch it more than two or three times, and every single time you watch it, it becomes something else. kind of like barbarian weapons type films. It's not like other movies. And again, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I love Friday 13th, Halloween, Chucky. But all these movies, you watch it and you understand when you get to the end, there's no unanswered questions. You're like, okay, I'll see you next year again for Halloween. But then you watch something like this, or like Parasite, for example, right? You watch Parasite and it's so good, and you feel like, fuck, like I may have missed something because it was so much information being taken in. I need to rewatch this like right now. Um, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, long story long, little ramble there, but I do feel like they did have a game plan, and I feel like they've been executing it well. I recently saw The Death of a Unicorn, and it was interesting concept, dude. Like, it wasn't one of my favorites, but I appreciated the originality. In this day, this day and age where we live with either prequels or sequels or remakes, it was nice to see a script that had some humor where it was poking fun of like new generation and stuff like that. But it was also it wasn't like a jab to the heart. It was more of like a little jab, try to make fun, like with the girl with the vaping with what's her name? Ortega. What's her first name?
Oh,
Uh,
Jenna Ortega.
yeah, Jenna Ortega, whenever she gets anxious, she starts vaping really hard. And it was so funny because I know people like that. So it was a friendly way to kind of mock, I guess, Gen Z, but also mocking Paul Rudd's character, the dad, that's very oblivious. And he's kind of like being one of those typical dads that's not doesn't know what's going on. But again, that story, I thought it was awesome. It was original. I was like, finally, somebody's making something that's coming from their head, and they're not just seeing something like, how can I redo that? Um, so I definitely appreciated
Yeah.
that.
No, I mean, I for sure, but I just for me that one didn't work too well. But like for example, and actually funny enough, I think A24 released this movie surprised me because I don't I can't relate to Gen Z too much, so I don't when I see a trailer like a movie like Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw it,
No, I
but
haven't.
I was like, I'm not watching that movie. It's gonna suck. But then I started hearing it was good. And then a lot of people were like, no, even the older generations are like, you have to check it out. And I watched it and it was surprisingly pretty good, man. Like I recommend that movie. I think that's a better one that captured that. Yeah, and I think kind of like Death on Unicorn was trying to like have that style and vibe of Knives Out, which I thought was a million times better.
Yeah.
Obviously this one has unicorns and different things. But yeah, I think there's certain movies and going back to not to switch it too much, but I think there's space, like we said, for both. Elevator horror, you hit it on the nose with everything you said. But at least for me, I enjoy them. But I think rewatchability wise, because you're trying to catch on to other things for sure. But man, they're just a little. Some of them can be a little bit too hard to watch like often. You know, like this movie is a
Yeah.
good movie. I don't want to watch this movie once a year. Like this movie for me is like once every 3 years, and got to be in the mood for it. I think it came out in what 2018. I've seen it
Yeah,
three
2018.
times. I've seen it 3 times. So yeah, that's pretty good. I would say since we did it for this, I probably won't watch it again for a while. But no, they are great movies, and but man, there's nothing like I'll rewatch the Halloweens and the Freddy's probably about 7 times before I rewatch this one again. But different styles, and sometimes you just want to have a good time. But no, I know what you mean though, for sure.
Yeah, dude. No, I agree with you, man. Like this is definitely not a movie where I want to watch multiple times throughout the year, or any type of situation like that. It's like, dude, Nightmare on Elm Street I could put on anytime, and it's just fun. Like obviously they're a horror, and I mean they're very Nightmare on Elm Street, it has a lot of body horror in it. So it's one of those where even though you're seeing all these things, you know how the sausage is made, so you know all that's fake, but it's just so much fun. You have fun with these characters. Same thing with like Jason Voorhees. A lot of outlandish deaths happen. Like it becomes pretty funny. You have the dumb, campers doing like dumb shit. So and then Chucky's another one. Bride of Chucky's just such a fun movie to watch, and they become more of to me they're comedy first and then horror second, but it's a very tight margin because obviously with the Nightmare on Elm Street, as the movies progress, they get more and more funkier, and you have a lot more comedic relief than anything. Um, I think Yeah, and they're just, again, they're fun ones. Halloween, I think, is the only exception where there's not real much comedy in Halloween at all. Obviously, Michael Myers doesn't say anything, so he's just kind of
Yeah.
he's just a
Yeah.
stoic type.
No, yeah, a lot of the originals to those are a little bit less with the comedy. Even the first
Yeah,
Nightmare doesn't really. Freddy's a little darker in the first two, and something like the first Chucky it has to have comedy a little bit because it's just funny that a doll's killing people. But but let me tell you, let's dive into this ending, right? Because it's there's a lot to talk about in the ending, and
yeah,
so let's. What do you think the film's ending is like? Is it terrifying, divisive, or both? And what did you get out of this third act?
dude, I definitely felt neither. I wasn't terrified. I wasn't divisive. I just felt like it was leading up to it, and then when it finally verified what that ending was supposed to be, um, it was just like, okay, so yeah, grandma was in a cult and all that stuff. And, and now we understand why, everything was being said throughout the movie where she wanted to breastfeed, where she wanted a boy, and because obviously she wanted a male vessel and all that stuff. And yeah, I think the only creepy thing obviously was like that scene where, with Tony, where she's like crawling up the wall in the dark, and Peter's in that room, and it's like very creepy, and that's creepy as hell. And then you have all these elderly people in this freaking treehouse, like doing all
Yeah,
this, like
naked
doing
and
this.
stuff.
Yeah, they're all naked and just doing this whole like sacrificial thing. Um, and then you get to the end with Peter itself doing the little, and then
Hmm.
you're like, oh, holy shit, okay, like this was what it was meant to be. But yeah, I didn't. I think the movie had so many creepy things throughout that when you get to the end, I was already like, oh, okay. Because if you pay attention to the film and you get to the end, you're not going to be really blown away. It all just, when you get to the end, it's like it verifies, the investigation throughout the movie, all the breadcrumbs and puzzle pieces. How'd you feel about that?
Yeah, very very similar. I was to say that I think a lot of people might disagree with me in saying and me saying that the third act is the weakest part of the movie. Not that there isn't a lot of great stuff in there. To me, the part that got me the most in the third act and still surprised me to this day because I watched it the other day and I totally forgot that it happens to Steve, to Gabriel, is the part when in another great performance by Tony Collette, where she wants to throw this it's a no the picture book of Charlie into the fire, and as the audience you're thinking she's sacrificing herself and she's the one that's gonna catch fire, and to this day I always forget that he ends up catching fire, and that scene is amazing. Like that scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie because the anticipation of the way she's acting, she's like, please, please, please. She's like begging him to throw it in, and she's like, I'm so sick of your bullshit already. It's like whatever, yeah, I'm just gonna throw it in there. And then when she just ends up throwing it, I'm sorry, he doesn't want to do it, and then she throws it in there, and then you expect her to catch fire, and then he just catches fire like super fast. And then we cut to her face, and you see the light from the fire, and her reaction of just like what the hell, and the trauma, and more trauma for this poor lady, which I know wasn't a great mom, but she's been through a lot. So I just feel for her, man, and that scene is amazing. Outside of that, the whole cult thing, and I mean it's fine. I have no problem with it. I do feel like this director really likes cults because I mean he did Midsummer right after, but he has moved on to not even making horror movies now. I think he did a movie about the pandemic this year, and then he did a movie called Beauty is Afraid, which I still haven't seen with Joaquin Phoenix, and that's not a horror movie, but his first two were definitely cult related, and yeah, I enjoy it, but yeah, the third act, other than that fire scene, is it's fine.
Dude, I'm telling you, she sucked, man. Like this guy catches fire and she doesn't even try to get a freaking try to pee on him or water, nothing, just stares. But talking about
She's in
cults,
shock, yeah.
dude, like when it comes to cults, I could understand why the director would pick like cult subjects and stuff to talk about in these films because, I mean, dude, cults are real. We
Oh
have
yeah,
cults
for
all
sure.
the time, and I mean, it's creepy as hell because again, it's like we live in a world where you don't know. I mean, we don't have verified what's real, what's not. It's all just assumptions for the most part. I mean, science only gets us so far. And I mean, dude, there's been cults out there for generations, generations. I mean, from the beginning of time, there's, I mean, or at least for the most part, verified beginning of humanity itself, right? There's all these weird cults. I mean, you had the Salem witch trials and all this stuff. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, dude. I mean, people talk about celebrities all the time. They say the Illuminati, and there's all these cults in there, and that's why they get rich and this and that and stay young. Um, but to see it in this film, especially how grounded it is in the film, because if you notice too, watching the way this cult behaves and the things that they're doing is very grounded, right? It's very not like they're doing not norm. I don't want to say the word normal, but it doesn't seem like anything like crazy as far as for like supernatural. They're doing like marking certain things and reading from a book and it just it seemed very, it wasn't like, oh, that couldn't happen. Obviously with the whole reincarnation thing and all that stuff is different, but before that, everything else was like, oh, I'm sure there's people out there in the middle of the woods naked chanting around a fire or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And it's creepy, man. It's definitely stuff like that, like real life stuff. I feel like real life stuff that really exists, it's like the most creepiest in these type of horror movies compared to, you have like Hard Eyes, even though that could be creepy as hell. You never know. There's some guy out there that's just trying to kill couples on Valentine's Day or something, but it's definitely different. It definitely sticks with you compared to like Freddy or Jason. It's like I know if I go to a lake, there's not going to be some guy with a machete and a hockey mask out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and another scene that got me too, that it's going back to the final scene with Tony Collette, is when she's like staring at him and you just hear the noise and she's just like cutting her own head off. Like there's something about that with the cutting the head off, and the grandma, that they took it off too, and it's what happens to Charlie. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there. There's some great imagery, some scary stuff. Once again, Alex Wolff does an incredible job in his acting at the third act, and everything he has to do, and ending up in that treehouse with all that creepy stuff. And I noticed, I think I noticed it before, but I forgot that the the they have like a what looks like almost like a Jesus, but then the face of it is Charlie's head, which
Yeah.
was pretty crazy, man. So yeah, there's some crazy imagery in there and some scary stuff. So no,
Good.
it's not a bad third act. I just find it to be a little bit compared to what we got before. It was what I was more locked in.
Yeah, like I definitely feel that because I know from my understanding, this film was the original cut was almost 3 hours. So it gets to that point once you get to that end, and I definitely understand where you're coming from, it not being too strong. Because once you get there, you're like, oh, okay. Even though some of the imagery is like, oh shit, but for the most part, it's like you were kind of already expecting it. So it makes you think, you know, if the film would have been cut even a little bit shorter, if it would have had more of an impact, or even maybe seeing that 3 hour cut. Who knows if we'd ever get that cut where we would actually sit there for 3 hours and see if maybe there's something even more and it makes the ending even better or not. But do you think that if the movie would have been cut a little bit shorter, the ending would have had more of an impact, or certain scenes would have been taken out from the film that would have definitely led up to more of that mystery at the end when you're like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting this, like Memento style?
Well, I was never bored throughout this movie. Let me be clear. It's only 2 hours. 2 hours 7 minutes. I think it ends at the 2 hour mark. So I think for me, a movie being 2 hours is like right in the pocket. I think you can tell a really good story in 2 hours, and I don't know if it's shorter. I don't know. Would I even want a longer one? Probably not, to be honest. I think we're right there where we should be.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything to cut because the performances are so good, man. Even some little things that might not need to be there just work, because I mean it's a small cast, such a small cast, and everyone brings their A game, and it's really great. So no, for me, I'm good with the way it is as far as length.
Yeah. No, I'm same here. I'm just curious, man, because I always love those like original cuts just to see, sometimes it's like hit or miss. I know with the Tree of Life, I believe I have the cut where it's like that extended one. I haven't seen it though, but I've heard people say, it has a few extra visual scenes, but it doesn't really add to the story. So I am curious if there was anything else even more crazier or grotesque in this one. I mean, the fact that they, to in a film to do what they did to a kid, and then at that end where they have her head there, like on a
Yeah.
stick. I mean, dude, that's pretty intense because you don't see a lot of those movies where they do that. I mean, you see it with Pet Cemetery, for example, right? With a little boy.
Right.
But you know, when you think from the top of your head, at least for me, like there's not that many movies where they do horror like that to certain kids and they show them in that way. So that's definitely one of
Yeah.
those I was like, that's pushing the envelope a little bit, especially if parents are watching this, you know, and they
Yeah.
have kids, they're like, holy hell. Um,
No, and I feel for the actor and his family having to see her, because nowadays too the effects are so great when it comes to the practical, that the poor girl's head looks very real, and it's I think back like damn, like her mom's not gonna want to see this movie or something, like it's pretty rough. Because Pet Cemetery, like um yeah, the kid he gets hit by a truck, but when he comes back, he's still all in one piece. You know, this poor girl's head goes off, so
yeah.
it's a little bit worse.
No, and you know, the fact too that this film, like that telephone pole scene, I mean, dude, that was a lot, like mostly practical effects, obviously with a little digital blending, which I always appreciate. I mean, I'm very big on balance. I feel like when it comes to, it's like using AI. You don't abuse it. You use it as an assistant for like little modifications here and there. It's fantastic. But when you rely solely on digital, like it really ruins the hell out of it, for the most part. I mean, I think Transformers is the only exception where I was watching it not too long ago. They were playing them on TV as like repeatedly, and I was just thinking, man, what they did with Optimus, like, dude, that's a good example of how to use freaking like CGI and all that shit and make it look really good. But with this film, I thought it was like a perfect marriage between the two, and I mean, like I could only imagine them having like a bunch of molds of their daughter, their kid,
Hmm.
just laying around like that, and then the parents are on set. Obviously, they have to be there because the kid's a minor, and they're just like, "Dude, what the fuck? Why is my kid's head is just there's like 15 different versions here, and they're all decapitated and messed up, and it's like
Yeah.
freaking nightmare fuel, man." But
Yeah, it's
dude, and
rough.
one thing I wanted to touch really quick. I want to touch back on the whole like trauma and like the heaviness of the film, because one thing I wanted to mention was, you know, as far as for Tony, um, you know, originally she actually didn't want to do like another heavy type drama. If I'm not mistaken, she had just come off something else, and it was something where she was like, "I need a break." You know, obviously, when you play these different type of roles, it really weighs on you. But she read the script and apparently she was so blown away by the story and everything that she's like, "I'm doing it. Like, I'll put up with it one more time." And dude, I wonder if her coming off from a drama and still having it in her, and then doing these type of dramatic scenes in this one, it really helped, like, and like and to, like amplify the grief and all that stuff. Because I'm thinking now, I wonder if she would have done like a comedy or just something else or an action movie prior, if we would have still got the same performance or not. But what do you think about that? Like, do you think that would have taken any effect, or you think that's just in her toolbox of acting that she's just that good that she could come from comedy or romantic movie and still pull it off?
Yeah, I think she would have pulled it off just fine. I think if anything, yeah, thank God that she took the role even though she wasn't in the mood to do something so heavy. That's one thing for sure. But I know, I mean, she's a great actress. I'm sure she could jump from one to the other. I think her performance would have been the same, but I'm just glad she took it because I can't imagine anybody else playing this role.
Yeah, no, the show's fantastic, man. Same thing. I couldn't picture anybody um, playing any of the roles. To be honest, I think it was a perfect casting. They all did their part. I didn't feel like there was a single person in this movie that was slacking, or I felt like, man, you know what, they could do a little better. Like it was just amazing all around. Especially the kids. I mean, you know, the acting was just, whenever I see kids do that well in a film, dude, it's always astonishing. It gives me hope. It's like, okay, we're not gonna be stuck with a lot of these TikTokers becoming actors, kind of like I know what you did last summer remake, where it's like this is our future of cinema. You know, like you have some major talent out there. You know, Dakota Fanning isn't the only one that was like an amazing child actor. Like we have some prodigies here.
Yeah, no, no, for sure. No, there's still a plenty of good actors out there. I think we're safe.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now, dude, like besides, because I was looking through the fun facts, we covered a lot of them. Um, I know from what I'm seeing here, the only one that we didn't talk about was like the miniature houses and how they were used in the film. Obviously, they were custom built to mirror like the Grams family. like house and all that, because we did talk earlier how certain scenes you could tell they were supposed to represent miniature. Dude, what'd you think about that incorporation with those with that between the storyline and everything? Do you think it was like well done or it was a little too on the nose?
So well done. Really liked it. There's a lot of scenes throughout the movie that there'll be a shot of the neighborhood where they're at, or you'll see a lot of like trees in the house, and it looks like a miniature. And I'm like, "Wow, is this one a miniature or is it a real shot?" That's how good it is, 'cause
Yeah.
like, you could still it's still some of them did look like a miniature, but it was really good. And just even all the the ones that she's working on and all the detail that went into them. These people are true artists, man. It's really great. I thought it worked really well.
Dude, and then for that budget too, I mean, it's incredible that they were able to pull that off, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I think at the time, this was definitely one of the highest grossing films for A24. And the fact that they put that much like love and care into making this just right, I feel like it really made it like it opened up the door for to make movies like Midsummer, The Lighthouse and stuff like that. And obviously each one of those is a little bit different. Obviously, besides Midsummer being also like a cult type film, but I like the fact that they're playing around with these different ideas. I appreciate it. And even if maybe it doesn't hit the nail on the head, it's definitely opening up like that whole creativeness and that playfulness in film for other companies and other producers that they're going to be like, damn, I kind of liked what they did there. Let me make something and turn it into my own thing. Um, but definitely a big impact in the film community, man.
Oh yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, man. I believe it was their highest grossing movie until Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it was a big hit. But yeah, I think we covered everything, and I definitely I'm curious to see and this is something that we've forgotten a few times, but I think we finally we got it down. I think it's time to rate this.
Oh man. Well, right now the letterbox rating is at a 4.2 out of 5. Um, as far as for rating on my end, I'm giving it a solid 4. And the only reason why I'm giving it a 4 is just because it's an amazing film. There was obviously the EpiPen. There's certain little things that I'm nitpicking about it, but I think a 4, it's very generous. It's amazing for what they did and the creep factorness. I think it's there. There's certain moments where it's like, oh shit, like it's very subtle and creepy. Well, what about you, man? What are you giving this one a 5?
Well, I mean, I would be okay with anybody giving it a 5 because I understand this is a very well made movie, very well
Yeah.
directed. The acting's amazing. The story, the first two acts, I love it. The third act, I think it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not. It wasn't my cup of tea. But so for everything that's said, I'm gonna say this. There is a lot of movies out there that I've given a 3 star or a 3.5 star that I personally will probably watch way more times than this movie, maybe even a 2 star. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's such a good movie that it deserves at least 4 stars. So I give it a 4 out of 5 based on that as rewatchability because you do grab new things, and I'm sure next time I watch it, I'll pay attention to some of the things that you mentioned and other things that I'm sure will pop up. But it's too well, traumatic to watch so many times in
Yeah.
a row. This isn't a yearly watch, like I said earlier. But man, great movie, very well made.
Well, it's safe to say that Lee's not going to be watching this every other month, and neither am I.
Unless you pay me.
Yeah, pretty much. I have to sit there. It's like Clockwork Orange style. Your eyes are all like being held open. They're like, watch
Right,
it. You're
yeah.
like, not again. I don't want to see the naked elderly again. Like this is horrifying.
Too many naked men here. Old
Yeah, it's
men.
like too many. Talk about how the sausage is made. There's like too much
Too much
sausage in this
sausage.
one. So we got the rating out. I think we did a great. I'm giving myself a pat on the back, man. We did it 2 movies in a row compared to the other 2 that we missed, and now we got 2 locked
Oh
down.
yeah.
So I
I
think it's a good start.
I think we got it locked in. I think we'll stick with it. I'm sure we'll get them all from now on.
Yeah. Now, the next segment is obviously us giving the movie recommendations. Before we do the movie recommendations, I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Valoria Video, amazing small business located in South Florida. If you haven't heard of them, make sure to check them out. Go to valoriavideo.com, and they have a ton of physical media. So if you're looking to get the 4K, of this film. I mean, make sure to check them out. They probably have it on there. I think there was maybe a steelbook as well. So there might be a steelbook be able to pick up, add to your collection. If you use the code Face the Movies 10, you'll get 10% off your order. So, I mean, for anybody watching this episode, I'm gonna go ahead and pop that up on the screen, so you can go ahead and get that. And if not, if you're just listening to this podcast episode, again, Face the Movies 10, Valoria Video. These guys are amazing. So go ahead and you're looking for anything, go support them. No pressure at all, but just want to give you guys a little heads up. Now, let's move on to the movie recommendations. Lee, what do you have? I'll give a few, and then go ahead and you start it off, and let the kind, lovely people that are listening to this or watching know what they could watch after this.
I'm a little disappointed in myself. Usually for every movie, I know we have a list, and then I usually try to add some or look them up. And with this one, I forgot this time, so I apologize. So I'm just gonna go with a couple that are on the list. I do think if you want to go old school 1960s, I do think Rosemary's Baby is a good fit, because it's got really good acting, very well directed by a good director, and I believe it had a lot of Oscar nominations too. So I think it fits with this one very well. And the one that I haven't seen in a long time, only saw it once because it's a heavy movie, like maybe not as heavy as this one, but The Babadook. Um, it's definitely one that you can watch. But with this movie, honestly, if I'm gonna give you my recommendation, right? I would say watch The Nutty Professor right after, so you can feel good. So you can have a
That's
few laughs with Eddie Murphy, and then you could go to sleep feeling good, man. Because this is not a movie that you want to sit through another movie just like it right after, unless I don't know you want to have bad nightmares or sleep bad. But I say go. Nutty Professor was my go-to movie as a kid that I would watch after a horror movie if I was a little scared. So that's my pick, man. Nutty Professor, 1996.
Well, there we go. So if you guys are new into this type of films, or you're kind of left uncomfortable afterwards, you could go ahead and enjoy The Nutty Professor. Or if you guys are horror hounds and you just want to continue that train of misery and darkness, some other recommendations, which are both cult type films. You have Midsummer or Midsummer, whichever way, came out to 2019, a year after Hereditary, and obviously same director, Ari Aster, follows up with this one. It's supposed to be more of a folk horror, but again, it's cult based. So if you're wanting to stick to that theme, you have that. The only difference is that you're getting a lot more nature, which is kind of nice. The movie's definitely a lot brighter. You're getting a lot more colors compared to this one. This is darker, so then you're going from darker to light. And it isn't as heavy as this one. So I would say if you want to do a double feature, start with this one, very heavy. It's going to leave you in a certain place. And then with Midsummer, it'll definitely brighten things up for the most of the film. And so obviously gets to a little bit of the heavier stuff. But even then, it's not like this one. It's a different type of heavy. So you have that. As far as for The Witch, you have that one as well. It's from 2015, and Robert Eggers. And it's, again, A24. Some are calling it a horror masterpiece. Some people will say it's okay. It's kind of boring. It's all about, some goat the whole time. But, Lee saying, he's pointing at himself. He's saying that definitely
That's
that's his
one.
thoughts
I'm
on
one
it.
of those.
Yeah. But again, guys, I brought that one in here just because it was one that was, after some research, it was recommended. I haven't seen it just yet. I might pop it in this week to finally kind of watch it. And then there's another one called Saint Maud 2019. It's supposed to be another unsettling A24 horror. I haven't seen it yet, but it's one that, upon research, it gets brought up. But those are some of the ones where either you could watch this and then watch something funny, uplifting, or just stay on that horror train and watch these other ones. But yeah, I think that's it for this dive into Hereditary, a film that proves sometimes the scariest things come from within the family.
Yes, and let us know your thoughts. Is
Her.
Hereditary a modern masterpiece, or is the hype overblown for this one?
Yeah, let us know in the comments, guys. We'd love to hear back from you. Either you're watching this on YouTube, good old YouTube. And if you want to watch this episode on YouTube, obviously check out Face the Movies. You can watch it on there. But let us know in the comments if you agree with us on our little synopsis of what we interpreted this film was about, our thoughts on A24, our thoughts on the recommendations, or if you have any recommendations yourself. If you took anything different from the film that we did, let us know on there. And wanted to give you guys something, something funny to laugh at after, descending into this dark nightmare with us. But Lee and I were talking about us messing up saying Hereditary. Um,
Yeah, and
for
I
for me, I was worried that I would say heretic, because for some reason I always say either heretic or hereditary and then mix up the two together. And then for Lee, it was, what was it, Lee?
Hereditary. It's
Yeah,
a tongue twister for me. I don't know why. Hereditary. I've been working on it all week. I got it for most of the podcast, and of course, at the end, I got tongue tied. Before, but I do want to say though, do you want to mention the movie we're doing next week for everybody, so they could get hyped and ready for it? Maybe
dude.
watch it before it comes out, so we could all have experienced it together, and then we could all you guys could hear us talk about it. It'll be fresh in your mind. We're going fun next week.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna be our first October episode, so we're gonna do Jeepers Creepers.
That's right. Jeepers Creepers with old Justin Long. So we're doing
Yeah.
that one October 1st, and then it's going to be released. You guys might get lucky. If we get enough likes and enough watches on this one, we'll release it a day after on the 2nd. If not, you're just going to have to wait till Friday. Sometimes I'll release it a day early, but I kind of like to leave a little surprise, kind of spice things up a little bit in this relationship between us and you guys.
Yeah, yeah. I look forward to talking about that one. So October 3rd, Jeepers Creepers.
Absolutely, dude. Hell yeah. I love that movie. So I'm excited to talk about it. So, guys, make sure if you haven't, it's been a while, watch it ahead of time. But, guys, again, thank you so much. Make sure to check out my channel. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this on there, on YouTube, you're already on the channel. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this, like, comment. If you're listening to the podcast, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you could do the same thing. Head on over if you want to watch the visuals. But my channel's Face the Movies, and we got Lee's channel, Cinema Whiplash. Make sure to, again, subscribe to Lee as well. Make sure to comment, all that good stuff on there. He has a playlist as well of all these episodes on his channel, so you could watch them on either one. Or if you're trying to watch the episodes twice, watch them on both. But there's definitely going to be a lot more horror discussions up until pretty much for the remainder of this podcast, because that's what it is.
Exactly. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Friday Night Fright Night. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, guys, until next time, keep the lights low, the volume high, and beware of the family curse. We'll see you on the next one, guys.